Shanta. Chapter 1. The Exile's Return. The wind carried the taste of iron and old blood. Kaelindra stood at the edge of the Frostmarch Pass, her cloak snapping against the stone like a banner no one had raised in her name for 10 years. Below her, the valley of Valdris unfolded in a patchwork of gray fields and skeletal orchards, the distant spires of the capital glinting like needles against the bruised sky. She touched the leather pouch sewn into the lining of her coat and felt the obsidian shard, warm against her ribs despite the mountain chill. Her mother's shard, the last piece of the throne that had not been stolen or shattered. The outcasts had taught her many things in the northern wastes: how to set a bone with woven grass and willpower, how to read animal tracks on frozen ash, how to kill a man with her own shadow, or close enough that the difference didn't matter. But most of all, she had learned to wait. The Iron Gate was 2 days' march from here, and it would decide whether she entered Valdris as its heir or as another corpse rotting in the mountain pass. The road to the gate wound through terrain so steep that mules had to be blindfolded. Kaelindra had no mule. She had her boots, her shard, and a blade called Nettle, a lean, ugly thing forged from scrap by a woman who had lost her fingers to frostbite. Nettle had no pommel jewel, no lineage, but she was sharp, and Kaelindra trusted sharp. The first night she camped in the ruins of an old watchtower. As the fire caught, she pulled out the shard. It was no bigger than her palm, jagged on one edge where it had been broken from the throne, smooth on the other where generations of rulers had rested their hands. In the firelight, it swallowed light rather than reflected it. But when she held it to her ear, she heard a hum, so faint it might have been the blood moving through her veins. The voice in the stone. The old woman Morgath had warned her. The throne remembers every king who ever sat upon it, and every king remembers the throne. They speak to each other in dreams. The stone learns your mind, Kaelindra. It learns all the doors you keep locked, and it picks them open one by one. What does the throne want? She had asked. Morgath had laughed, a sound like stones grinding. Want? The throne doesn't want anything. The thing in the throne wants everything. Kaelindra wrapped the shard and tucked it away. She dreamed of her father that night, slumped in the obsidian hall, the usurper's blade still wet at his throat, his eyes fixed on something only he could see. In the dream he tried to speak, but the only sound was stone grinding against stone. She woke before dawn, packed, and walked. The Iron Gate rose from the mountain like a scar. The portcullis was 30 feet of black iron, each bar etched with spiral patterns that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. Blood magic, the kingdom's oldest art and its most shameful. The first king of Valdris had paid a blood witch to bind the gate's mechanism to the royal lineage. It opened only for those who shared the blood of the throne. It killed everyone else. A checkpoint had been built into the rock beside the gate, painted in the black and gray of the usurper's guard. A soldier sat at a table beneath an awning, a ledger open before him. He looked up as Kaelindra approached, and his eyes narrowed. Halt! State your name and business. Kaelindra had prepared lies. A merchant carrying salt and dried herbs. She had the inventory to prove it, but standing here with the gate looming above her, the lie died in her throat. My name is Kaelindra, and I have come to claim what is mine. The soldier's face changed. Boredom became something ravenous. Kaelindra, the exile. The heir, he laughed. You're a decade late. The Lord Commander sits the throne now. The gate will kill you. It doesn't care about names. It reads intent. My intent is to go home. Something flickered in the soldier's eyes. The usurper posted his unhappiest soldiers at the gate, knowing that misery was a better guard dog than loyalty. The soldier's hand fell from his sword. He sat back down. Go on then. Die or don't. I stopped caring years ago. Kaelindra walked past him toward the gate. She pressed her palm to the iron. The cold bit instantly, a shock that shot up her arm and settled in her chest. The shard against her ribs grew warm, then alive. The gate groaned, not the sound of hinges, but a deep voice trying to speak through a throat of rust and stone. The spiral patterns began to glow, amber light pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Something looked at her from within the iron, something older than the spell, buried so deep it had become part of the mountain. Kaelindra did not look away. Open, she said. The iron bars began to rise, shrieking and grinding. Inch by trembling inch, the passage beneath them cleared. She walked through. The gate slammed shut behind her, the sound so violent she felt it in her teeth. But she was through. The mountain pass opened into a descent through pine forests, and in the distance the capital glowed with 1,000 torches. Home. The first village she passed was called Harrow's Rest, and it had not rested in years. She remembered riding through it as a child, hands sticky with honey cakes, heart full of certainty that the world was good. The square was still paved with river stones, the inn still stood, but everything else had changed. Fallow fields, boarded houses, doors marked with the usurper's broken crown brand. The people moved with heads down as if looking up might invite consequences. The innkeeper was a woman Kaelindra did not recognize, with a hard face and hands that knew work. "Every village pays a blood tithe," the innkeeper said. "The Lord Commander says the throne needs to be fed. People don't come back from the capital. We've lost 17 from this village alone." Kaelindra felt the shard against her ribs, warm and hungry. What would you do if someone offered to stop the tax? I'd ask who was offering. Someone who has a claim. The innkeeper's eyes sharpened. She reached beneath the bar and pulled out a bottle of dark ale. "That's the last bottle from the old harvest. Your father's favorite. I've been saving it for a day worth remembering." Kaelindra drank, and for a moment she was a child again. "If you're here to claim the throne," the innkeeper said, "you'll find allies in the shadows." "I don't need allies in the shadows. I need them in the light." The innkeeper smiled, thin and genuine. "The light is a dangerous place to stand these days." The journey from Harrow's Rest to the capital took 4 days. Kaelindra moved deliberately, avoiding the main roads, sticking to game trails and dry riverbeds. She saw the hunger in the villages she passed. Not just of empty bellies, but a deeper hunger, a longing for something broken. The kingdom was sick. Its throne was eating its own memory. On the 3rd night, she stopped in the ruins of an old chapel dedicated to the stone gods. The altar was still intact, a slab of black stone veined with white. She placed the shard on it. "Tell me what to do." The shard was silent. She had never expected it to answer. The outcasts had taught her that gods, like thrones, took far more than they gave. On the 4th day, Kaelindra reached the capital. The city rose in concentric rings of stone and iron, each ring older than the one outside it. She pulled her hood low and melted into the crowd, heading not for the castle but for the warrens. The old district beneath the castle's shadow, where the city's forgotten lived and died. There was a tavern called the Weeping Axe, her mother's favorite. A woman worked there who had been her mother's closest confidant. Kaelindra pushed open the door, and the warmth of the fire and smell of spiced wine hit her like a memory. The woman behind the bar looked up. The cup she had been polishing fell and shattered on the floor. "By the old gods, you're alive. I told you I'd come back." The woman crossed the room and wrapped her arms around Kaelindra with a fierceness that hurt. Kaelindra let herself be held. For the first time in 10 years, she let herself feel what it meant to be home. "Your mother would be so proud. I haven't done anything yet. You walked through the iron gate. You're standing in the capital. You survived the wastes." The woman pulled back, eyes wet. "That's the beginning of everything." Kaelindra looked past her into the crowded tavern. Faces she half remembered. Names she had almost forgotten. The Loyalists. The rebellion was not a seed. It was a fire, waiting for a spark. And she had come with a torch. "I need to know everything. The usurper's movements. The strength of his garrison, the names of every lord who still remembers my father's oaths." The woman nodded. "The warrens are full of people who would rather die than serve Vale." Kaelindra sat down at the bar, the shard warm against her ribs, the weight of a kingdom settling on her shoulders. "Then let's start." Outside, the torches of the capital burned amber and false, and somewhere in the obsidian hall, the voice in the stone whispered to a usurper who could not sleep. But in the warrens, in a tavern called the Weeping Axe, the true heir of Valdris had come home, and the crown, the iron crown of Valdris, was no longer safe on the usurper's head.